Hello everyone and welcome to our first tutorial on Introduction to Go. In this video, we'll be learning some basic concepts about Go. Before we move forward, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also do not forget to press the bell icon so you do not miss on any new updates. So now let's see what topics that we'll be covering today in this video. The first topic that we'll be taking off is key features of Go. The next topic that we'll be taking up is Go compiled or an interpreted language? Then we'll be checking if Go is strictly typed language or not. Does Go need any type of runtime environment installed on the server machine? Is Go an object-oriented language or not? What features of OOPS Go does not support? Now that's a tricky question and important one as well. Ancestors of Go. So we'll be getting into some history about Go, like where Go was started from and what are the ancestral languages. Some essential rules that we need to take care while coding in Go. That also involves some elimination of semicolons, code blocks and braces that are to be used, and about one special package that is always there for you, that is a built-in package. So now let's start by understanding some key features of Go. The first feature that is offered in Go is simplicity. Simplicity of code was the first feature that was kept in mind by the developers of Go. Here, at times when you start coding in Go, you might start feeling lack of many functionalities that are offered by many competitor languages like Java, C Sharp. But those features were not added in Go keeping simplicity in mind because those features might have been adding some complexity to your code. So simplicity is the one key feature that is offered by Go. Second feature that is offered is fast compile time. Now, at times when you start developing bigger programs like developing some enterprise level solutions, your program might take 30 to 35 minutes to get compiled. Now, at times when the program takes so long to compile, you might miss on some of your testing cycles. That is why Go has kept the compilation time also in their mind and reduced the compilation time to a lot lesser than the other languages so that you can keep your focus on your testing cycle as well. Go has an advanced garbage collector as well as compared to other programming languages. Go's garbage collector is very fast and more efficient. At times, there might be some scenarios where you start feeling that a Go's garbage collector is working or not, but actually it is working in background so fast that you don't even sometimes may have noticed. Uh, the fourth feature that is there in Go is built-in concurrency. As compared to other languages which are more commonly used these days, were developed in times when concurrency was not a key feature that was expected by any program. But now, if you see, the concurrency is one major key feature that has to be there in any program that you build. So Go is developed keeping concurrency in mind, and the concurrency is a built-in feature that is offered by Go. Compiled to a standalone file. As compared to other programming languages, let's say Java, you need a runtime dependency to be installed on the server machine at times, and then only the code binaries can be run on the server machine. But in Go, the executable that is being prepared will contain all the dependency in it apart from the HTML or CSS dependency that you might be using when you develop a HTML application. Now let's come to a very important question that comes to every developer's mind before choosing any new language. Is Go a compiled language or an interpreted language? Now to answer this, let's understand and compare Go with JavaScript. Many of you might have worked on JavaScript if you have worked on some front-end technologies like HTML, CSS. Now, if you have worked on JavaScript, you might be well aware that any code that you write in JavaScript is never checked for a syntax error before it is actually run on a browser machine. On the contrary, anything that you write in Go will be compiled before and then it will be executed. So the Go is similar to C, C++, Java, or any other languages that have a compiler of their own. Any code that is compiled in using the Go compiler will be creating an executable, and that executable is machine specific. That means the code that is being compiled will run on the set machine. So if you compile the code on Windows machine, the code will definitely be able to only execute on a Windows machine. So you need to choose what operating system you are compiling the code into and what operating system you want to run it into. Now let's come to second very important question about any language that you start learning is the language a strictly typed language or not? Now, Go is a strictly typed language, unlike JavaScript, because in Go, at compile time, every variable that you declare has to be assigned a definite type. So let's take this with an example. For example, this code is written in JavaScript where we have declared a variable a which has an initial value of 10. Now I try to log the value to console and get the value on the console, which is perfectly fine. And in the consecutive third line, I am assigning a string value to the same variable, which was earlier having an integer value. Now I try to log this variable's value again on the console, which is perfectly fine and would be logging the value, the exception handler, as there in the variable. So this is perfectly fine in JavaScript. That means JavaScript is not strictly typed and will allow you to assign any sort of value to any variable that you declare. Now, this is not likely in Go. Now in Go, if I see this example, I have a variable declared a which has a value 10 and I'm trying to print that value to the console. This is perfectly fine, but the third statement that you see where I'm assigning the value of type string to the same variable which was holding an integer value is not allowed in Go. Now, variable assignment in Go has an alternative way of assigning as well, where you can use the keyword where. This part we'll be covering in later part of our tutorials and we'll be talking about this in detail. So assigning a different type of value altogether to the same variable is not allowed in Go because in this mechanism we have already told Go's compiler on the first line that a would contain an integer value and should not be allowed to contain any other values, whether it is a decimal, float values, it will never be allowed in Go. Now, this is an important question that comes to mind of any manager or any developer who is thinking of delivering the final product to the client or deploying the final product on the server machine. Does the server machine or the client machine where the code has to be executed need any sort of runtime environment pre-installed on it to execute the executable that we are being delivering? Now, this this problem was solved in Go, as when we compare Go with Java, Java needs an runtime environment to be installed on the client machine, which makes the Java executable that we are delivering much more lighter in weight as compared to the executable that you deliver in Go. But the profit of this is that there is only one executable and which will always contain all runtime dependencies that it needs to have. This at times also solves the versioning problems that we face. In Java, you might have faced that your runtime is of an older version and the runtime that you were using as a developer on your system was of a newer version and the code does not get compiled there. So you stuck into some problems of this sort. So these problems are being solved by Go by containing every runtime dependency in one executable that is being delivered to the client machine. Now, this also has one more issue that creates, but that is for a good sake as well, that the executable that is being prepared by the Go compiler is of much larger size as compared to the source code files, because the the executable will definitely have the runtime dependencies, which makes the executable of a larger size. Now, this is also one important thing that you need to take care of is if you are using a server machine that is having a Linux operating system and you try to develop the code in a Windows application and compile the code that is according to Windows machine, that will not execute on the Linux server, because the runtime dependencies that were included in the exe that you compiled is having runtime according to Windows machine, so will not be able to run that same executable on a Linux machine. So you need to choose your system and the server accordingly. Next very important thing that you need to understand is Go an object-oriented language or not? Yes, sort of. Go is an object-oriented language but with some limitations, where Go implements interface that is there in object-oriented concepts. Interface is nothing but a contract that has to be implemented by the implementing class or data structure that is supposed to implement the interface. If you come from a coding background like C Sharp, Java, or C++, you might be well aware about the interface concept. But don't worry if you are new to object-oriented concepts. We'll be discussing this interface in later part of our tutorial. Next thing that is very important, that is in Go and is a part of object-oriented concept, is you can create your own data structures, and those data structures can have member fields and member methods defined in them. These data structures are very similar to classes in other languages, but with some known limitations. These known limitations will be covering in the next slide. Now, coming to the point where we need to understand what are the features of OOPS that is not supported by Go. The first very important feature that is not supported is inheritance. Inheritance is a feature where you can inherit from a parent class. For example, I have a class called animal and it have a feature called name, uh, speak. Those two functions are there, and you are also having a class called dog, which is a subclass of animal. So dog will have its own speak and name methods dog can have, and might be it is inheriting it from there and not having it of its own. So this feature is not supported in Go. Go also does not support operator or function overloading. So in Go, any function in the same package or in same type has to have a unique name and unique signature. You cannot have a function that has uh, any two functions rather that can have same name and can have different signature altogether. That is not supported in Go. Next thing that is not supported is a structured exception handling. So you do not have keywords like try, catch, or finally here. But to support this exception handling, Go has provided with us with a structure called error. Sorry, this error can be returned from any function, and you can add special handling cases for these error and handle the errors by your own. Another feature that the Go does not implement is explicit data conversion of numeric data types. For example, in other programming language, you might have been able to convert an integer to float directly without writing any sort of specific conversion there. But in Go, this is not allowed. In my personal opinion, this is also good because this makes the code more readable to other person who is new to your code. Because when at times when you are debugging any sort of issue, you might not notice that an integer variable is getting converted to a float variable and that might have caused the issue. But if you specifically give a numeric integer to float conversion, then you make the code more readable and more understandable to other person who is new to your code. Now let's understand some history about Go. Go was designed as a next-gen language of C. So in Go, you can also develop a systems program or an application program where you can also interact with network protocols. In Go, you can also develop an web API. Go also borrows its syntaxes from C or other related languages like C Sharp or Java. It also pulls some of its syntaxes from Pascal. So at times when you start coding in Go, you might be getting a very familiar sort of syntaxes that you might have used in C, C Sharp or Java, similar languages. Now let's understand some essential rules that you need to keep in mind while coding in Go. First one, Go is a case sensitive language. That means any variable that you declare or any function that you create has to be referred with the same case sensitivity as you used while you declared. Let's understand this with an example. Here, I have created a variable or declared a variable with name age where all the characters are in small letters. And in the next statement, I'm trying to refer to age variable but with A capital. This is not allowed because according to Go, these are two different variables. Now, the correct would be if I declared a age variable with all small and tried to refer it again with all smalls. Second thing that you need to keep in mind is all functions or variable name normally starts with a lowercase character. But if you create a variable or a function that starts with a capital character, then you make it accessible to other part of code up outside to the package or to the type. For that is similar to public member variables that are there in other languages. Another important thing that we need to keep in mind that as a Go developer is Go helps us in reducing the amount of typing that we need to do as a developer. As a part of that, Go has also eliminated the use of semicolons that we need to use while coding in other programming languages. So, for example, I have created a variable with name with variable name as name, which can have two string values. I have assigned two values to the first and the second index of the array, and if you see, I have not used any semicolons in the three lines. So this semicolon is actually added by the lexer and is needed by the compiler to understand whether the line has ended or not. Now, the key rule of thumb that you need to keep in mind is lexer will add a semicolon by itself when it encounters a line field. Only exceptions to a conditional statement or a looping statement. Now, so you need to take care and remove all the semicolons, and you cannot go ahead and keep writing a code in new lines and keep adding a line feed wherever and whenever you feel like, as you were doing in other programming languages, because that can result in error or bugs. Now also let's start understanding how we can use code blocks and braces in Go. Now As other languages, you can group many statements together by use of curly bracket. So we can use similar curly bracket to group multiple line of code into one. Now let's see this with an example. Here I have two variables, flag and prime. Here I am trying to check a condition where flag's value, if it is true, then prime should also be assigned a value true. This is okay because if you see in if statement we have removed the parenthesis. This is a part of goes helping us eh, in reducing the amount of typing. And if you see the starting of the curly bracket has to be there in the first line where I have written the condition. And if you try to move this starting of the curly bracket to next line, there will be a compilation error because the Lexer would try to search for a starting of curly bracket as soon as it encounters a condition or a conditional statement. So you need to keep in mind that any of your starting of curly bracket in a looping statement or in a conditional statement has to be there along with the conditional statement line. Apart from this, in if condition, if you are trying to use an else block as well, then the else has to start from the end of the if ending curly bracket. In the same line, the else keyword should be there where the ending of the curly bracket was there. This we'll see in the coming tutorial of uh, this section. Now let's understand about a special package by the name built-in. This package is always available to your code whether you import it specifically or not. This package will have many functions that helps you in your code. The function names are as follows. Len. This gives you an output where if you provide any input string, it will calculate the length of the input string and give you the output. There is a panic function where you can pass in any sort of uh, variable and you can raise a panic. Panic normally means raising an exception and stopping the program from its execution. There is a recovery function that is there in this built-in package which helps you in recovering the program from a panic and restarting the flow of your program. I'll give the link to this package in the description below. There you can go ahead and read all the other related functions that are there in built-in package. Or else we'll also try to put another series where I can describe the built-in package. Thank you for watching the video. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also press the bell icon so that you don't miss on any new notifications. Also do comment on the below section on any feedbacks or any new tutorial that you would like us to do.